going on, Switch Mentality? We're back again with another episode, and this time I'm elated to speak with Emily Todd. Obviously, played some football, but is also really in a football-oriented career now with her actual job, and she's just been progressing up the ladder as the years go on. And honestly, it's an honor to chat with her, and I think she'll open our eyes to a lot of the great things in women's football right now as that platform begins to grow. So Emily, glad that you're able to make it. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat about women's football. It's become my life pretty much over the past year. So yeah, I'm excited.
Absolutely. And I follow you on Instagram, so I see all the cool things you're posting. I see a lot of that is with Football Ontario, and I know now you're like the director of development and administration for Football Ontario. But it's been a long road to get there. You were an equipment manager at Western. You were a general manager for a little bit at Team Ontario. You were a teacher. Like you've done so many different things, and now you're in a career in which you've always aspired to be. And so, talk to us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, for sure. You did your research, which I like. So yeah, that's kind of how I started. So the main reason I got started was because my uncle has been a longtime football coach at Guelph University. So before I even went to Western, I kind of considered myself to be a Guelph fan. Like I wanted to go to Guelph because I knew the football team and like nothing else. But I started getting into it more, just going to those games on the weekends. And then when I went to Western, I started volunteering with the team there. So just helping out with the equipment manager, just wanted to be involved in kind of anything I could do to help. I was really particular. I'm like, I don't want to sell tickets though. I want to be like on the sideline, like involved with the team, anything you need. So I did that for 3 years. And then when I was done at Western, I became a teacher. So that was always kind of my plan from high school. And then my undergrad was in French language and literature because I wanted to be a French teacher. So I didn't really foresee myself going down the route of working in sport.
Right.
I just kind of always had it as like a hobby and like volunteering and something that I like to do. I actually got started teaching during COVID. So it was a mix of like virtual teaching, in-person teaching, not the greatest time to start a career, but then still kind of kept up with like football and volunteering wherever I could. And then I started volunteering with Football Ontario. They were looking for district football coordinators. So basically people in different parts of Ontario that had an understanding of the region and what kind of they could do to help and support at the grassroots level, whether that be like more flag programming. And then they saw I applied and wanted me to focus on like the women and girls programs.
Right.
So then from there, I became the general manager for Team Ontario. So they had their first U18 women's tackle team. We traveled to Regina. So that was the first time that tournament ever ran. And it was kind of the first time I ever saw women or girls tackle football. I didn't really know how it was going to go. Like I'd obviously grown up watching like men's football and really loved it, but that kind of sparked my passion for getting more women involved in the game. And then that led to a part-time position with Football Ontario and then became full-time almost a year ago now, like April last year.
Well, that's an amazing story, and it's the most interesting part of it is you're doing careers in almost what it seems like they seem very different, right? Whether it's like equipment managing or general managing or coaching or teaching, but you find a way to put them all together, and I think that was what the biggest thing I got from that. And the thing I wanted to dive into a little bit deeper is you talked about how you were a teacher and like, it was literally during COVID, so you were going down that path. But then you just decided no. What was that process like? Like, did you feel at any moment like you made the wrong decision? Did you face some adversity along the way? Like, just talk to us about that.
Yeah, for sure. So it was actually interesting. It was my second year of teaching, and I had been connected with Laurence Pontbriand from the CFL. And she, was the one who created like the women in football program. So I had a conversation with her, and she was actually a teacher as well. So she was kind of in a similar situation where she was teaching, and then she was invited to, I think it was like an NFL combine or something. And there were some, CFL people there, and they saw something in her and wanted her to come in to the CFL and kind of help them grow, again, the women and girls side. And they just found a position for her. I want to make it clear, I didn't like leave teaching. I finished out the year, and then I actually wasn't hired back as a teacher. So it kind of worked out for me that way, because I was doing like long-term occasional teaching. So it was like every year was like a new contract for me. And then I had reapplied to my board, reapplied to different positions, and was not hired back. So yeah, I took the part-time job with Football Ontario, and I had another job where I was like an administrative assistant for a company. Again, just like a virtual job that, paid well, had good benefits, but then allowed me to do a part-time role with Football Ontario as well.
Right. And even that too, like we talk about adversity, there's no greater adversity than literally applying to something and not being able to get that job, right? And I think a lot of the times, even for me, football players, people in general, once that adversity hits, now what, right? And there's obviously a lot of different like paths and routes to take, and in most cases, things have a way of working out, right? And for you, like you were going down that path, maybe you faced some adversity. If you didn't, I guess, choose to jump into the sport development side, the sport director side, you eventually down the line you probably would have gotten some kind of teaching gig, but within that time you decided, you know what, let me chase a passion. And I always have like the utmost amount of admiration for people who do that. And we were discussing a little bit offline about the OWFL, which is like Ontario's first women's tackle league, and I know you're a board member on that. And I coached women's football back in the day for about 3 4 years, and I absolutely loved it because I find the more attention and resources that go into it, the better the product gets. The girls are extremely committed. And a lot of the women that we had, they hadn't played a sport for X amount of time, like just from high school. And then they got to women's football, and all of a sudden it was like 6 a.m. Yep, I'm there. After practice, yeah, I'm there. Hey, can we watch extra film? Yeah, I'm there. So it was amazing for me to see. And honestly, that's when I realized like it's really just a resources thing, right? Like, can we provide similar resources? Can we provide similar representation, a similar platform, and see where this goes? So, I wanted to talk to you about the OWFL. When you being on the board, what does that look like from your end?
Yeah, for sure. So it started just over 2 years ago, a year ago. And it actually came up, it was in the works for a while. There's some people within Ontario that are super dedicated to growing the women's game, especially on like the youth tackle side, and giving girls that option from a younger age to play tackle and to get involved. So the first season was actually after that first women's tackle national championship, because it was kind of like we played on the national stage and more people kind of got bought into it and could see that there was value there and that girls wanted those opportunities. Quite a few players on that team actually then played in the OWFL, but before that, there weren't any, girls only teams for them to play. They'd be playing co-ed, and some of them still do, and they're rock stars, but for the girls that rather just play, on an all women's team, that was something that was kind of lacking. So it started in the fall of 2023, 2022. And there were, 3 teams. It was a great, opportunity kind of introduction. And then our spring season is where we see more regions able to put teams together. And we also have 2 age groups now. So there's some teams that run U16, some teams that run U19, and then it's across Ontario. So I think ultimately the goal would be to get it to the same place as the OSFL, like where the boys on that,
Right.
Traditional boys league. And then to also have like different tiers, I think would be really great as well. So to have some regions or teams that are more, like grassroots level for people who haven't played before. But then, now that we're a few years into this, some of the girls are getting to a more like high performance level. They're ready for something a little bit more challenging.
Right.
So I think that would be great. And again, it does come down to resources, like funding for different regions. And aside from the money piece, it's even just, like manpower and getting people involved. So making sure that regions have coaches available, because a lot of these regions or these teams already have established boys and men's programs. Coaches have, dedicated their time to that, which is great. But then asking them like, hey, you're also going to put in a women's team. It's like, okay, we need a general manager, we need coaches, we need equipment, like we need, people dedicated to it. And then officials as well, having people that, understand, because the OWFL plays six-a-side. So having people that, are passionate about six-a-side, that want to see that grow for the women and girls. So yeah, it's good though. I love it. I love, going to those games. And like you said, the girls are super passionate.
Yes.
I've had people connect with me and say, hey, I'm in Barrie, what's closest for me? And they're willing to drive and make that commitment because, we're still working on getting programs across Ontario, but their level of passion and commitment, even from their parents that want to see them play, is awesome.
I 100% agree with you. And I saw it firsthand. So I know what the dedication commitment looks like in women in football. So, no, it's amazing that you're doing what you're doing. And I hope that it continues to grow. And it looks, just based on from what I've seen, that it is doing that, even with the conference that's coming up soon.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll chat a little bit about the conference. So it's the second annual Women in Football Conference, Women's Football Conference. So we're holding it again at Tim Hortons Field, obviously my favorite place to hold to hold any event. So I'm excited they wanted to have us back. So that's going to be March 1st to 3rd. And we've kind of tailored it this year to, again, last year was very much like, because it was the first one, it was just learning about different people in the space, like mainly women in football, but then also men within the space that either coach women in football or kind of like support the growth of it. Whereas this year it's tailored more to like coach development. We have an officiating clinic as well. And then we also have some sessions that are specifically for athletes. So kind of showing them, what's possible at the next level, whether that be careers in football or if they're high school students, what opportunities are available for them post-secondary. So again, just really want to include as many people as we can and show that, there's something for everyone. And, if you're a woman in football, that the opportunities are really endless. So
I agree with that, and especially about the opportunities post football, because like we've been emphasizing time and time again, these skills really are transferable, right? And you don't have to be a professional football player to be able to learn these skills. You need to be dedicated and committed to your craft. And once you're that, you will see all the other skills that come with it, right? And all of that is obviously pretty heralded as an employer because they want people who are going to be disciplined. They want people who are going to communicate. They want people who are going to be accountable for their actions. They want people who know how to work on a team. And again, playing at this level of football and having other people depend on you, it always translates pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, some of the skills that I've seen, within Team Ontario, within some of the girls' teams, and even at the OWFL level, you can really see, who those leaders are. And then I can already see them becoming leaders in this space later on because they're taking those opportunities. They're coming to the conference. They're taking on leadership roles within their team. They're, asking for more from their coaches. Like you said, it's something I see. Again, I'm not as involved in the men's side, so I obviously see it and I'm a little bit more biased about our women and girls space, but they're asking to watch extra film. They're asking to do extra work. They want those extra workouts. And those are the people that, once I figure out what I'm doing next, then I don't have to be leading the charge as much in this space. That like next generation comes in and they can provide those opportunities to people later on, which will be great.
You mentioned you're not as involved in the event side. However, where we did actually meet was at Hamilton Tigercats training camp. So you were involved, and that's when we first met. And I want you to talk a little bit about first, I guess, the Women in Football program by KPMG and kind of what made you interested in applying to that and what that process was like. And then we'll get into what actual training camp was like.
So I actually, this goes back to when I was teaching because I applied to it the first year it came out, and I had, a really good conversation with one of the other CFL teams. I was still teaching at the time, so I wasn't able to make it work to leave the classroom for a month and then come back. The following year, I applied to it again, and I was in, a different role. I was working in Football Ontario, and they were really supportive of me, taking a month off and going to work with the Ticats. And I think it did really work out. I was definitely meant to be in Hamilton. I grew up in Burlington, so that was kind of always like my home team. And just, as you know, like the community, the culture, the atmosphere in Hamilton is just, it's like unmatched. And I had the best possible experience with that program that I could have. The application process, it was pretty simple. It was just some, typical questions. But something I like about the program is that there's again, opportunities for everyone. So if you're, a woman who's interested in coaching, if you want to do strength and conditioning, I did more of like the football operations side. So they do really open it to anyone and kind of show you all of the different possibilities that there are in the CFL and all the different things you can do within a team. So yeah, I can't recommend that program enough, especially Hamilton, but like the program overall is just, it's awesome.
I mean, the last thing I wanted to ask you, just you've talked a lot about football, right? Your growth in football, the growth of women's football in general, and in a in a perfect world, I guess, in the next 5 to 10 years, what would women's football look like to you, and how can people help that go?
It's a good question. So first thing that came to mind was the 2028 Olympics. So I think that's definitely like a huge start in having flag football be an Olympic sport. And we've kind of received a lot more, people asking about flag and wanting to get involved since that announcement came out, which is really good. And I think it's good too because it shows young athletes that there's like a pathway for them, similar to, in like hockey or soccer or for men, like tackle football. So I think that's been really good and that people, want flag football to be their primary sport. And now that women and girls kind of have, if they want to continue along like a high performance pathway, that they have somewhere to go. And similar for women's tackle football, they can play for Team Canada as well. So again, I think having those like long-term goals for these athletes is really important and giving them something to work towards. So I think ideally, I would just like to see more of those opportunities continue to come up. We've talked a little bit about OWFL, which used to be Powder Puff. So now that women and girls have those opportunities to play flag in post-secondary, college, university, and participate that way has been huge. And again, it's really cool to see, I'm helping out with OWFL a fair bit. So to see some of those schools run like try football sessions or like high school showcases, and that's becoming part of the girls' experience in choosing a university is they're like, well, U of T has like a really great team and they have like a really great coaching staff. So to see that being part of their decision to go to a school, like that's
Wow.
pretty cool for me.
Yeah.
And that's something that I chat with parents about, and I'm kind of helping to promote that as well. So that's been really cool. But I think more at like I would say like grassroots level or even like Football Ontario level, I think just growing more programming is like my ultimate goal. So that when people come to me and say like, hey, I want to put my daughter in flag football, I live in this region, like where do I go? So just having more opportunities for them and more programming available, I think would be my ultimate goal on the flag and tackle side too.
Right. No, that's amazing. And the fact that it's going into where they go to school is that's how you know there's strides being made for sure. Because some schools, like just like you said, the where they are coaching wise or program wise isn't quite the same as other schools, right? And that now being accounted for just goes to show you the growth in women's football. Your favorite football moments?
Ooh, okay. First one that came to mind was 2017 when Western won the Vanier Cup. We played it against Laval at Tim Hortons Field. So then going back and doing my program with the Tag, it was like a full circle moment. But I've got a Vanier Cup ring, so that's probably my favorite.
Oh, that's amazing. That's one more than me. The most influential person in your life?
I would say my uncle. So he's definitely how I got started in football. He, I think took maybe a year off of coaching and then is going to be back coaching at Guelph. So I'm going to have to go back to some more Guelph games. But again, seeing his passion for it, talking about it at family events, he beat Western in a Yates Cup and then brought the Yates Cup to like Christmas dinner just to kind of gloat, like things like that. So he's definitely like been fully supportive and like encouraged me to do this.
I love it. I love the competitive.
Savage.
Favorite NFL team?
So I'm a Jets fan, unfortunately, but
Very
yeah.
unfortunately. All right, Emily. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak about not only you and your rise, but the rise of women's football in Ontario. I think you're doing amazing work in that space, and I really want to just discuss that process because people are seeing the progression, but not necessarily what goes on behind the scenes to create that progression. And I think, like I said, I've seen the growth just from this end. I've seen what it looked like before when I was coaching to what it looks like now. And a lot of that is attributed to people like you in the space who are making it grow. So hats off to you. I hope that you continue to do what you're doing in the space. And if there's any way that myself or other guys can help out, feel free to reach out. And we'd love to see the game of women's football grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll probably be reaching out to some people about, just coming to support. And I think,
Yeah.
it's huge having, CFL players come and support the women's space because it shows the athletes and the coaches that they see value in it and they want to support it. So that's always huge for sure.
Right.